Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, 3 Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading 3 Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I'm very excited to have Bill and Connie DeKramer with me today. Bill and Connie have been helping people restore their health and lose weight naturally for over 25 years. Former restaurant owners, cookbook authors, and lifestyle coaches, they've added a new piece to their program in the last 3 years that makes it even easier for people to regain a vital level of health and achieve their natural healthy weight. Relying on the 3 principles, they help people understand how the mind works, and then the food and lifestyle habits that contribute to poor health and excess weight begin to unravel without effort or willpower. Thank you, Bill and Connie. It's so great to have you on today. I think it's the perfect time of year for 2 reasons, actually, because it's the new year and everybody is full of these like, oh, let's get healthy. But I also feel that for me, I'm just talking about myself right now, this COVID, has definitely helped a few of us pack a few pounds on. So I think it's the perfect time to talk about how to regain your health on every level as well. So I'm thrilled to have you here. And I'd love, before we get into the work that you do, I'd love you both to share how you came across the principles and how it impacted you.
I'll start. Okay, so it's interesting. We were living in the Bay Area, and I wanted to come back to Canada. And we had a huge altercation because Bill wanted to stay. And when I came to the place, Del, where I saw that I would be okay no matter what, and I really didn't want us to separate, I had this experience of a very quiet mind. And coming back to Canada, I was listening to a lot of webinars from weight loss people, because that's part of my background. And I heard Dr. Amy Johnson. And what I saw was, oh, she's taking people through the doorway of their difficulty to who they really are. I want to know more. So then we trained with Amy to become change coaches and immersed ourselves totally in the principles. And I loved it so much because what Sid talked about was my experience before meeting Amy. So that's how it came for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I just respond for a second. So it's amazing. So you already, and this is what we say all the time, the principles are happening whether we know about them or not, but you actually had the awareness that what was happening, that through a quiet mind, that you got that sense that you'd be okay regardless. So not many people get that. That's pretty amazing. So what about you, Bill?
Yeah, well, and so we've been on a spiritual quest all of our lives. We've been in business a lot, but our real interest was, how does life work? And I know there's so much more to life, but I still seem to go on these roller coasters. And what's that about? And so when Connie started to listening to these weight loss people, and then she heard Amy, well, she was listening on the computer, so I'd be in the room and I would hear it too. And it kind of got my interest. It's like, this lady's not talking about weight loss. She's talking about who we are. But weight loss is tied into that. And it just took her to a whole new dimension, because we had been helping people for over 25 years restore their health and lose weight naturally. And that can be done because that's just, our bodies are designed to be healthy and to have a healthy weight. Where we get into trouble is with our lifestyle and our thinking. So people would come to us, they do a 6-week program, and they'd lose the weight and they get rid of the pain, they get off their meds, everything's great. And you'd think, how would they ever not want that the rest of their lives? And we'd see them, sometimes not everybody, but you'd see enough people after 6 or 12 months, the weight was back on, the pain, the meds, everything. It's like, well, there's something missing here. we can help them get what they want, but it doesn't stick. Why doesn't it stick? So when we heard Amy, we saw, oh my gosh, I think this may be that missing link, to use Sid's classic book title, may be the missing link. And sure enough, it is, because we see what's driving people to use food in a way that's just not nourishing the body to create health. We're using it to try and deal with our emotions, our thinking, and that gets us in trouble. So being able to help people to unravel their thinking and see that it's really not a problem out there that's creating the tension, but it's my thinking, then that starts to open up and clear up. And then they hear the wisdom of their body for what to eat. Mm-hmm. And that wisdom comes from, well, whatever, but, there's like DNA in every cell that is designed for the body to be healthy, and our bodies are designed to be drawn to what's healthy. So it's just made all the difference.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And it makes complete sense because, we talk about that, that just as our body can heal itself, if we scratch ourselves, it naturally heals. And so does our psyche. It just makes sense that our body knows what nutrients it needs and will direct us if we quiet down enough to listen. That's where the problem is. Sometimes
it's interesting. Yeah. They've done research with very young children before they get a little lost in their thinking, and they put all the foods out, from the junk food to the good food, and they let them eat whatever they want, however much they want. And every one of them, after a few days, they all gravitate to what is healthy, and they eat a healthy amount. It's like we are programmed, and there's research showing that we have the intelligence. So what's always getting in the way is a busy mind. It's just thinking come to life. Yeah. That is the deal.
It's so funny. I'm thinking back to when I have two children. Well, they're young men now. But when they were children, I was quite strict about not having any, they were vegetarian until they were about 3. And I didn't have cakes and cookies and sweets in the house or anything. And I had friends that had all of that. And yet their friends didn't want it because it was available. Whereas my kids would come back from their house, the play dates, with their pockets full of sweeties and things like that. I was like, oops, I think there's something, here to learn about that, the deprivation, and which then, they start feeling deprived, and then the psychology comes in and the thinking, and, they have a attraction to that sort of food. So tell me about, I know you have all these different programs. Tell me a bit about that and how it's different. Do you do calorie counting, portion control, or how do you approach it for people that are interested in getting a healthier lifestyle and a healthier weight?
Well, I think just what you're pointing out about your kids when they were young really distinguishes our program, and we've really loosened up about it. When we first started the program, it was like, look, you've really got to eat this way if you want to be healthy. And we've seen, as we've learned more about the principles, this whole thing about deprivation. What we resist persists. When I say, I can't have that, we want it more. And so one of the unique parts of the program that we do now is that nothing's off the table. You can eat whatever you want. But we do make very clear guidelines. These are the foods that are going to nourish your body. If you have the urge to eat some of the other things that you like to do it with presence. Maybe you want to share a little more about the exercise.
Yeah, what we begin to see is when we get present, then my voice is weird. When we get present, what happens is there is no habit underpinning present moment. You better share.
You have a drink of water. So basically, it's if you're going to eat this food that's off the program, get really present with it. Love it. Really be there. Have a relationship with it. Because when we meet anything, whether it's a person or food or whatever, fully present, we really get to know how that impacts our lives in a real way. And we had one client recently who was just so on the program, and she was so happy with the results. And she shared in one of our coaching sessions, I had this desire to have a hamburger and fries, like, oh, taboo. And what do we said, well, why don't you do that? And she was shocked. And so we talked her through it, because she felt like so many people, if I don't really control what I eat, I'll just drop into the abyss and I will just be stuffing my face and all this bad stuff. So we just said, well, why don't you try it? We walked her through the whole fear of what might happen, and she had it, and she came back and she said, it just wasn't what I thought it would be. I don't really want that stuff. So when we get present and we relate to it in a real way, we know whether it's what our bodies want or not. So go ahead.
So that way, Dale, we're using what was a bad food as a doorway into more of who we are.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Everything that life brings up is guiding us into expansion and into relating with our true nature and the health that we are naturally blessed with.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because it's so true. So many of us are not present to anything, never mind the food on our plate. We're so busy up here and, grappling with I shouldn't, but I want and I shouldn't. And, we get hijacked by that thinking. But yes, you're right. If you to just get present to it and to really, listen for your body's feedback, if this feels good, or if this even feels, even if you really do want it, because I think that we can sometimes get into that rebellious nature of, but I want what I want,
True.
So tell me, again, so I was looking at your website. It is most, I'm assuming, tell me some of the really dense foods, because from what I looked at, it seemed like you do a lot of vegan food. Is that correct? Or you do other stuff too?
Well, what we do is start people with a choice. They can drop an inflammatory food group each week and see how their body responds, or they can jump into plant-based, because plant-based really supports the body to thrive. And then at the end of the program, as they hear their body's wisdom more and more, we go beyond all food philosophies and support them to check in and let their wisdom guide them to the choices they make, rather than busy mind thinking or old habit patterns. Yeah. So it's kind of a transformation that happens with food in our journey together. But what we want most of all is for them to hear their own inner wisdom, to let their body's guidance be their authority, not someone on the outside, not some plan or program.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's so unique in the field of weight loss and everything like that, to actually really listen to yourself. And so just out of curiosity, though, you mentioned giving up, maybe, because I know you help people who have some pretty serious health conditions. It's not just about weight loss. It's about, trying to think now. So tell me some of these symptoms that people can actually heal from themselves just through diet.
Well, it's really interesting. And physicians and science has shown how many of the chronic conditions that our society is plagued with today are really diet and lifestyle based, and how, diabetes can be turned around relatively easily. Arthritic pain. When I met Connie, that's what got me on the road. I was in a lot of pain. I was a jock, an athlete, and I was playing volleyball competitively. And I would come home from a competition, from a weekend tournament, and I had to hold both handrails to go downstairs in the morning because of the pain in my feet, my knees, my hips, my shoulder. And Connie looked at what I was eating, which was lacto-vegetarian, a lot of cheese, a lot of dairy. And she said, well, have you thought about just dropping the dairy? And I thought, what would that have to do with pain? Because I was seeing an MD, a chiropractor, a physiotherapist, an Ayurvedic physician, and I asked every one of them, is there something I should do in terms of what I eat? And every one of them, all of the professionals says, this has nothing to do with food.
Yeah.
So I meet Connie and she says, well, what about dropping the dairy? And I thought, well, what could she possibly know? No, she's not a professional, but fortunate for me, she was willing to cook for me for 2 weeks to let me try it. In 2 weeks, Del, the pain was 80% gone. That got my attention. So,
Amazing.
so many things that we're plagued with, high blood pressure, heart disease, all of that is so related to diet and lifestyle.
I heard an interesting thing. Dr. Joel Furman said, I've lost my voice. I apologize.
That's okay. We can still understand.
Good. The other day that COVID is a disease that's nutrition related. Those people who eat really great food don't get it. They just don't. It's striking so many people who have poor immunity. So who knows? And a lot of these MDs who specialize in plant-based food talk about cancer, that it helps so many conditions. Not all, but some.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting what you're just saying about COVID, because I know that, I keep sort of seeing, vitamin C, vitamin D, and certain zinc and things like that. And then, but these are things that if we did eat healthy, we would have in our diet anyway.
Yeah.
So clearly, a healthy diet is preventative, as well as giving you, if you were to get it, the best options of having a milder case of it. I think that's
really... And what you bring up about, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin C, all of these supplemental things, they're valuable. But when we get it into whole food form, there are a lot of what are called cofactors that allow the body to absorb more of it and to utilize it better. So that's why a lot of people who are doing a whole food plant-based regimen are actually finding a lot more resiliency than when it's just a matter of trying to get the right supplement here and there, which is just a small part of the overall nutritional profile that our immune system needs to be really healthy.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the inflammatory foods that people have in their diet that they could benefit from having less of.
Well, of course, sugar is a big one. Alcohol, all of the processed foods that we're living on today are all inflammatory. Processed grains, breads, things of that nature, pasta. Yeah. The main thing is to eat the whole foods the way they come from nature. That's what nourishes the body most. Mm-hmm. And we feel it right away, which is so great. The body communicates so clearly how beneficial whole foods are. And we can utilize those foods that aren't whole foods that we might have habit patterns around to guide us to what the body really loves. That's how we utilize those foods when people want to have them. We really encourage, as Bill said, for them to get present. Then they begin to create a true relationship with food, not a mental one, a really true relationship with what food does for the body.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so difficult right now. We get so many conflicting messages of what is healthy to eat. From, like when you think, or rather when I think, I hear plant-based, I hear that it's a lot of legumes and things like that. What are your thoughts on that? Or what about bread that's homemade? It doesn't have preservatives and things like that. Is that still going to be inflammatory, like whole grain or something like that?
Yeah, to a degree. You see what, and let me give a little caveat too. When we're in our course, we don't spend a lot of time with these kinds of details about the food because it reveals itself. But whenever someone has a question, we certainly have the background to answer it. So it's not a lot. We don't have to learn a lot about inflammatory foods and why they're inflammatory and why all of this works. It's wonderful to have that information, but it is a lot simpler than that because our bodies know what they need and we can rely on that wisdom. But just in terms of whenever we process a food, even if we're like making the flour at home, when we break that up, the nutrients begin to oxidize. So when we have a whole grain, nature has preserved that. That's the way that nature preserves its nutrients and life force because that has to go through the winter and springtime become another plant. So in the whole food form, it's all still live. When we mill it, then it's cracked open, the life force is gone, the nutrients, some of them start to oxidize, so now we've dropped the level of nutrition that's in it. And then when we eat it in that form, it goes into the body differently. We digest it, it's kind of pre-digested in a way. So lots of times, this is what a refined sugar is or a refined grain, it like goes into the system so quickly that then the body is taxed a little more. They got a whole lot of an ingredient that if it's taken in the whole food form, there's more fiber and it's taken in more slowly. So it can just kind of ease, like if you want to look at blood sugar levels, the insulin can go in more easily. Whereas if we take that big hit of sugar, the body's got to produce all this insulin and then it drops because it goes too far. Then we've got the sugar blues and you've got to come back into balance. And all of that just taxes the system.
And it adds weight. It also increases fat stores.
Yeah. I find it fascinating that you just said that you don't go into this much with your clients because I suppose I'm such a, I love to know sort of information. So people genuinely don't come to you and say, tell me what to eat. Tell me what's healthy.
They always, see, this is, especially anyone that's been dieting for a while, that's the program. Tell me what to do, because we think that it's something out there. We don't know we have this wisdom. Mm-hmm. We don't see that what's been short-circuiting my access to the wisdom is my believing that something outside of me makes me feel the way I do.
Yeah.
This is where the principles come in. When I feel like the pressure at work or my kids or my spouse or whatever is why I feel this tension that has me reaching for food when I'm not hungry, then the answer must be, let's shift things around out there. Tell me what to eat. Let's take control and do it from the outside in.
Yeah.
So they come to us with that expectation.
Yeah. So you don't offer food plans or recipes. Oh, you do?
We give you that one slide, the high nutrient dense plan. And so that's a guideline. We say, try this. We really encourage you to do this in these portions. So your body begins to experience what's possible with a high nutrient dense diet. That's what your body's looking for.
Yeah.
And once it gets that connection and starts having a real relationship with food, then we kind of wake up that intelligence, wake up that voice and can hear that voice, and then we can direct ourselves.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad I clarified that because I completely get, the sort of the outside in that people tend to feel that sort of their stress is externally caused and therefore, they reach for certain comfort foods or habitual foods that they've used in times of stress, not knowing that the stress is basically an inside job via our thinking. But there are some people that have never being maybe raised in a family that had whole foods or healthy foods. Sure. And so they might get to that place of like, okay, I know my stress is induced here, but what do I then reach for? So can you talk a little bit about the nutritionally dense food that you do, like sort of offer as a suggestion that people start going to so they can start listening to their own wisdom around the subject of food?
Well, like I was saying, they can approach it by dropping meat for a week and seeing how their body feels and including more veggies. Mm-hmm. And especially green leafy veggies. Why don't you carry on?
Yeah. And So when we talk about nutrient dense, what we're talking about, Del, is micronutrients, is the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, these nutrients that support our systems to function well. So we've got an immune system, a hormonal system, we've got a circulatory system. And these systems, to stay in balance and be healthy, don't require the macronutrients. Well, they do, but we never have a shortage of those, which is fat, carbohydrate, and protein. What seems to move the needle to make people healthy isn't by changing the fat, carbohydrate, or protein content that's coming in. It's the micronutrients. And those micronutrients are all phytonutrients. They're nutrients found in plants. So that's why we encourage a plant-based, a whole food plant-based diet, not just plant-based, because like vegan or vegetarian can be plant-based. You can live on chocolate chip cookies and Twinkies, and you're not getting those micronutrients. Mm-hmm. Where you get the micronutrients is in the whole foods. So that's in sweet potatoes, in grapes, in apples, in dark leafy greens, these kinds of things. That's what seems to move the needle. So whole food, plant-based, micronutrient dense foods is what it is.
That's wonderful. So tell me more about your programs. I know you offer you have 3 levels. So tell me about those, so that people that are interested in contacting you.
Right. So we've got a 6-week program. That's our basic program. Mm-hmm. And we have another class starting on February 1st coming up. And so that is 6 weeks. And each week, each participant has a one-on-one coaching call with us for an hour. And you get both of us because we've got kind of different perspectives on it. So it's kind of fun to coach together.
Yeah.
And every week there's new recipes, there's video lessons. So understanding more of the kinds of things we're talking about here, as well as more around the nature of how life works and the nature of the mind. So there's both aspects that come in the lessons. And we have a private Facebook group, and we do a community call. Yeah. So that's kind of the 6-week program.
And how many people usually participate in that?
We've been usually having 12 to 18, I guess, is the size of the group, so that it's small enough that we can really do a lot of one-on-one. That is where we've seen has made such a difference. Mm-hmm. This 1-hour coaching call seems to be really what accelerates the movement of listening to being able to hear their body's wisdom.
And then the community call, they learn from one another. That's very powerful too. Yeah. And we continue in that community call when they finish the course.
You're losing your voice.
You better talk.
Right. So then we've got the graduates still come together once a week too. Those that want to kind of keep a toe in the water and stay connected, and every week get a new recipe. So we've got the 6-week course. We have the ongoing course. After that, we have advanced courses. Once you've done the initial phase, a lot of people want to go a little more deeply into how this works and learning things that can help restore health. So we do courses around fasting and around what are some of the other things?
Cleansing, gentle cleansing, juices, smoothies, things like that.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question for you, because I for some reason, we always hear that, fiber is a really important part of the diet. So I tend not to juice. I tend to I blend everything in my blender, but I tend to like the fiber too. So what is the benefit of juicing versus having the whole say celery blended?
Well, the fiber is important, like you say, but the most quickly healing is juicing, because the body doesn't have to use its energy for digestion. So the nutrients go right in very quickly to the cell level.
So we look at it as juicing is a short-term boost to the body.
Yeah.
But that fiber is essential for 2 reasons. One is it allows the nutrients to come in a little more slowly so the body can actually utilize it more effectively. And the other is that fiber, they don't consider it a nutrient, but they're seeing that it is essential for a healthy microbiome, for this gut flora that is producing so much support for our immune system. We're making vitamins and antibodies and everything in our gut from the bacteria on that, and they need the fiber. That's what they live on.
Yeah, true.
So fiber, go for it. You keep doing the smoothies, Del.
All right. Well, this sounds fascinating, and I might be joining you. I think we need a reboot.
That would be great.
Yeah, as I said, I think there's a lot of mixed messages out there, and the whole sort of paleo, then the keto, and then the plant-based, and there's you've taken so much information that sometimes it can just sort of contradict, and then you're left thinking, what do I do?
Yeah.
And they often have scientific research behind what they're saying, so it's so believable. And so that's what we always say to all of our students: don't believe us. You try this and you see if it works for you. Because if I'm eating something because of an article I read, it colors my viewpoint of it, and we really want people only to have the results that their own wisdom is providing them with.
Yeah, I love this. I love this conversation. It's so, I've had an awful lot of guests on my show, but I love when the principles are so practical. And what's more practical than the food we put in our body every day? So I love the marriage of these two things and how they complement each other, and how that you're really pointing people back to listening to their own inner wisdom and their guidance and what's right for their bodies. So I really, really, really appreciate this. It's been wonderful having you on the show. And for people listening to the podcast, if you could just say your website out again so people can contact you. If they're watching the video, they can see it underneath. But
it's amazinghealtheffortlessly.com. We have a free webinar coming up on January 20th at 12 noon Pacific time. And that'll be on the website. You can find all the details there.
Wonderful. I'll definitely join you for that.
Good.
Okay. It's been such a pleasure having you. And you both look like this amazing billboard for natural health. So keep doing what you're doing and keep sharing your incredible knowledge.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Wonderful to be with
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you're interested in learning more about my coaching and mentoring packages, please reach out to me at deladeyjones@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you.